right, for the third time this week, what's up? It's Late Friday. It's the third episode we have because we had a little midweek treat, as those of you who listen know, with Tommy Kern, who popped by to talk about what everyone's talking about. But he's a little bit more plugged in than you are, than I am, than most people are when it comes to ownership. Jerod Mayo, former co-host on Quick Slants, and Mike Vrabel and all the other coaches who might be involved and interested in a job that may or may not open. So if you have not listened to that episode, I'm going to start this one by reminding you to go back and listen to my conversation with Tom. Very measured, reasonable. People get on Tom because of that relationship with Jerod and think he's soft about Mayo. Well, I will tell you in that conversation, I asked him point blank, hey, for a guy that odds are is going to be back in 2025, meaning Mayo, are we talking about the possibility that he might not be back a little bit too much? Tom said no, and I will let him explain why. So go back and listen to that episode because I'm only going to have one episode for you next week. And I tell you this because I don't want anybody disappointed when we go and disappear for 5-6 days and then come back next week. That is the reason why. You got 3 this week, 1 next week. Plus, Pat's schedule is going to throw us all off kilter here. They're playing on a Saturday. You got Christmas in the middle of the next week. I'm coming back from Buffalo on Monday. I will have a full film breakdown at the Herald, but only if the Patriots win or if this is really, really close will you get some film notes in the episode we do next week, which will also be a Pats Chargers preview and some kind of grab bag stuff. I think, if I can bully him into this, will be with Mike Giardi. So just a heads up on the front end, some housekeeping. This episode we are listening to now will have a Pats Bills preview, just from yours truly, on the front end. Then we have Antonio Gibson and the weekly 4-minute drills, these player interviews we've been doing. He was awesome, okay? And you've heard me admit before, some of things are better than others. It's just the truth. I don't need to hype everything else up like it's all the same and it's all great. This one, even if you don't like it, was one of my favorites. But I think this was really good with Antonio, who, by the way, playing like one of the best running backs in the league, if you like metrics like yards after contact. Second in the league right now. That dude is picking up 4.1 yards per carry after contact. So shout out Antonio Gibson. Then at the back end, segments with Kevin Wallace and Nick Roy, our male fans this week, who came together to donate 2 tickets to Pats Rams last month. And then donate money to win those tickets and go to that game in Kevin's case. And they were great. So I say this not because I'm telling you, oh, you get the usual good stuff on the front end. We had a really good conversation with Nick and Kevin about coaching, about possibilities, the offseason, what they would do, what I would do. So stick around for those. And if you want to be on the show just like them, Nick, Saint Nick that he is this time of year, but also apparently in general, guy I've talked to twice, is donating his tickets to Pat's Bills in the season finale. So if you want to be on the show, if you want to go to a game, keep your ears open next week because we could send you to the Patriots season finale this year. At least you get to see Josh Allen. Okay. How many times you get to see a future NFL MVP in person? Plus, your favorite team. So you can donate, you can win those tickets, you can come on the show. We're going to have a lot more fans on the show moving forward there at the back end of this one. So I think that just about wraps up the housekeeping. Oh, wait, it does not. And we will get to Pat's Bills here in a second. Still a 14-point spread, by the way. Largest in the Kraft's ownership, or tied for the largest, as I said on radio this week. Number 1 was, actually 1997, some game nobody cares about. Number 2 was Super Bowl 36 against the Rams. And number 3, the third time the Patriots have been 14-point underdogs, the largest they've ever been in the Kraft's ownership, was the Bills game in Buffalo last year. Number 4, coming Sunday, 4:25 kickoff. Now, the reason I bring up all of that is to say, obviously, we're not going to spend a ton of time breaking down a game that most expect to be a blowout. And frankly, you're going to hear my game pick later. I think it will be bigger than 14 points. But in the meantime, look, I expect it to be a blowout. And I know a lot of you, going back to Mayo here for a second, might want to see him canned right now. You want to see him fired. What I want to see is him and his football team finish. And I say this as someone who has been as critical, if not more so, than basically every other reporter on the beat of Mayo. And it's not because it puts hair in my chest or adds inches to the what. It's just to say that's how I see it. And in Mayo's case, though, I want to see how bought in the players are. I want to see if he can adjust. I want to see what I can learn more about him as a head coach because that's what this season has been about. For him, it's with the players. For us on the outside, it's about him, the players, Elliott Wolf, this whole new regime. Okay, which obviously it hasn't gone great through 14 games, but we got 3 more. So to me, firing him now, firing him next week, firing him anytime in the next 3 weeks is not finding a solution. It's just scratching an itch. And I get that itch is driving a lot of you crazy. It's driving me crazy. If you listen to the first episode this week, as I went back down his post-game comments in the game plan. It made no sense to me, but I think there's potential to learn more here, and I want to see what it is, especially considering, as I've said before, one win makes this entire conversation about his future. Will they change? Will they not? It's unlikely, but it could happen. Completely moot. Okay? And we just have to see what happens. Speaking of Jerod Mayo, super tight-lipped today in his press conference. His answers were short and varying degrees of salty. We make note of that, not to throw salt in his past wounds, but to say, this was the smart thing. Well done. That's exactly what I would have advised him to do. It even said back in the spring, less is more. So he's adjusting at least behind the podium 3 days without a Jerod Mayo blunder behind a microphone. Some more news. Christian Barmore, Thursday, went on the non-football illness list again. Really unfortunate to hear that there are recurring symptoms from his blood clots, which was discovered over the summer, kept him out for most of the season. Obviously, without question, wishing and sending all of our best to Christian as he continues to battle this, and hopefully he is back to full health as soon as possible, football or no football. His placement on that list, though, did create an open roster spot for the Patriots, who now have two. And it looked like, according to Chris Price of the Boston Globe, Terrell Jennings, who, if you remember who Terrell Jennings is, God bless you. He's an undrafted rookie running back who played and practiced this summer and then got cut because he wasn't very good. He's back. Looks like he'll be added to that room because JaMycal Hasty is one of two players who's out for Sunday, and the other player is Marcus Jones. Those guys obviously also factor in as kick returners, but the Patriots are filling that's one of their spots with Jennings. The other I would expect, whether it's this weekend or later, to be Caden Wallace. So last night on Sunday, and then we'll get into the game. Forecast, yeah, not great. Light snow. It'll be great if you're at home with your hot cocoa or this new drink many around my neighborhood are calling Bailey's Peanut Butter Cup. It's hot cocoa, a little bit of chocolate Bailey's, and Screwball whiskey. A little peanut butter in there for you. Hot tip for the holidays. Anyway, high of 17, real feel of 10 degrees, light snow, temps dipping closer to 12. So this is going to be frigid. And the Bills out in Buffalo today with their final injury report didn't rule anybody out, but Matt Milano, Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, and Rasul Douglas, all meaningful players on that defense, are all going to be questionable. So that's it. All right, let's get to Pat's Bills preview. Then we will get to Antonio Gibson. Mail fans, we'll get out of here. 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought. Number 1 matchup you got to look for on Sunday. If the Patriots are going to pull this upset again against the likely NFL MVP, a team that has beaten the tar out of them, 7-2 over the last 4 years, we don't have to talk about it anymore. They have to pick on Rasul Douglas. And it's not because if he suits up, which he might not, he's hurt. It's because he is one of the worst corners in the league in man-to-man coverage. And the Bills, over the last couple of years, facing a receiving core, they go, just like a lot of teams facing the Patriots nowadays go, probably going to play some man-to-man. And when they do, even if it's not an overwhelming matchup, because the Patriots offense just doesn't have any of those to present, need to pick on Douglas. So if it's Kendrick Bourne or Kayshon Boutte or insert Patriots receiver here, they need a big game, and especially when they're across from Douglas. Matchup number 2, Vidarian Lowe, Demontre Jacobs, stop me if you've heard this before, really struggling pass protection. They can't in Buffalo, but they might. Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, 2 starting defensive ends for Buffalo, combined 12.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 32 quarterback hits. Okay, those numbers are a little bit inflated because the Bills play from ahead so often, so they just get to pin their ears back, go, rush. The Bills like to rotate their defensive line, and Oliver's still a problem in the middle, but he's only got 2 sacks. The Patriots a little stronger in the middle, actually, depending on the week. But the point is, the Bills' best players on defense are right there in the edges. They need answers for them. Not only Lowe and Jacobs, but chipping, double teaming, maybe going a little up tempo, no huddle, wear them out. Worked certainly late in Arizona, didn't it? Okay, a lot of avenues, a lot of options here to wear on those guys and help 2 of your weakest links on offense. The Patriots need to do that and win those matchups if they want to win on Sunday. Number 3, and this is tough because you talk about blowouts or landslides. DeMarcus Covington versus Joe Brady. And let's be clear. Never has been, never will be personal to any coach or player in this podcast. But DeMarcus Covington has been the biggest disappointment of the Patriots. Okay? And Joe Brady, I don't think they give out this award. Maybe we do at the PFWA, Pro Football Writers Association. If there's an assistant of the year, it should go to him. Bills offense has scored 30 points in 8 straight games. That's every single game since basically Columbus Day. All right? So Joe Brady has unlocked a super multiple run game. He's coaching, obviously, Josh Allen to an MVP award, barring an injury or something crazy going on. He's got a number one receiver, Khalil Shakir, who's like a good player, but not a number one option. Shakir's got 71 catches, almost 800 yards. Oh, and the next two leading pass catchers for the Bills are a tight end in Dalton Kincaid and a running back in James Cook. And the whole operation is cooking because of how balanced they are, how good Allen's been, and how Brady is weekly providing edges for his quarterback and everyone else around him. So no Stephon Diggs, no problem. DeMarcus Covington needs to unsettle Joe Brady a little bit. This could be with different pressures on third down. It could be by completely going against their identity or whatever their identity is. It's the 30th ranked defense by EPA and DVOA right now. But the point is this, Covington needs to at least get that to a draw because if the Bills get to 30 points on Sunday, a place the Patriots have never been, and honestly not even really close to this season, save for that one game where they got to 25 against the Jets. This one's over. Covington needs to win early, set the terms of engagement, whether, again, that's through blitzes or simulated pressures, whatever it might be. Make Joe Brady uneasy, make Josh Allen uneasy. He's got to have a good game plan. This doesn't matter. And you might just go, oh, okay, well, loss. You might be right. Two keys. Number one, kill the clock. Tried and true strategy as an underdog. Long possessions. Limit the possessions for the Bills. This is nothing to do. I mean, it's an obvious point, right? Like you keep them off the field. That's good. It also makes luck, just dumb luck, bounces of the football, the wind blowing, play a bigger role and something harder to overcome if you get a bad bounce of the ball, if you're Buffalo. And the Patriots are trying to make this as messy and as lucky of a game as possible because the more possessions the Bills get, the more likely it is they'll prove what we know. They're a better football team. So don't give them as many chances to do that. It's the same as playing pickup in your backyard or in your driveway to 3 points versus 30 when you know the person you're playing is much better at basketball than you. You can get lucky and win if you go to 3. You're going to lose every single time if you go to 30. Try to keep them closer to, not going to be 3 possessions, but 6 or 7 versus 12 or 13. Number 2, red zone defense. Patriots, again, struggle here. This might be a big ask. Probably is. But they need to keep an eye on Josh Allen, especially in critical situations when he's more likely than not to take it into his own hands. It's told to me by defenders I talked to in the locker room today. You can also see with your own eyes. So when they get down there, field goals, not touchdowns. Number 1, wild card thought. Look, I already said it, actually. This is, for all intents and purposes, a nationally televised game. If you look at the TV maps, and not many people tweet these out anymore. I think Chad Graff sent this out earlier in the week. And our pal Mike Mutnansky put this in his Friday 4-pack. It's basically C to signing C on this when you look at the map and who's going to be watching what games. The color in these maps, I don't know who distributes them, is blue from the east to west coast, which means that color blue stands for Bills Pats. That's the big game in the 425 window. I'm very curious because we know the Crafts are aware of this. Got their bunny ears. They read a lot and they watch a lot. If they give this game a little extra weight because of that extra audience and the national potential for embarrassment that comes with a blowout loss, to which I would say, well, what do you expect? The Bills are boat racing everybody. If you lose by 17, you're just like everybody else. Not to mention past Patriot defenses and teams, even under Belichick, who again were 2-7 for the last 4 years. And the Bills, by the way, averaged 30 points per game in the previous 3 seasons leading up to last year. So this is nothing new. But those eyeballs are meaningful. They're meaningful to the people who have the most power. Will that translate? Will it mean something? We probably won't know for another week or two. But the more and more these little reports come out with less and less confidence about Mayo, this, I don't want to call it a tipping point. I think the Charger game is still more important than this one for the future of the Patriots, but something to keep in the back of your mind. All right, something else to keep in the back of your mind. I've been telling you, and if you haven't put this to good use, look, that's on you. That's not me anymore. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee for tickets, whether you want to go to concerts, you want to go to games, you want to go to shows. It's not too late right now to get the lowest price guarantee to any of those, either for yourself or for a great holiday gift. If you go to Game Time right now, I have done this for a holiday gift. I'll tell you right now. I did this 2 months ago, going to London, taking my wife, taking a friend. I will do this, probably go to a Celtics game or a Bruins game when the offseason comes. And you should too, because in addition to the lowest price guarantee for wherever you want to go and whomever you want to see, you get your seat views, okay? I know in Gillette, the 200 level, honestly, kind of a sweet spot. Not because it's, a little bit closer to the field in the 300 seats, but it's a better value. And when you're up that high, you get to see the whole field, but you're not so far removed that everyone looks like a little ant down there. And you can tell this on Game Time because they give you that Seat View app. And when you're in Game Time, you might as well use Game Time Picks, because Game Time Picks says, all right, you don't want to see all the deals that are way up in the 300s and costs about 300. We'll give you the best deals right up front. Okay. Cut through all the BS, cut through all the fluff. Here are our best deals. Here's the all-in pricing in the Seat View. You can only find all of these features in one place. What is it? You guessed it, Game Time. So don't waste any more time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Here's the best part. If you use code CLNS, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase for concert tickets, games, shows, whatever it might be. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right. Coming up now, Antonio Gibson, MailFans, Coaches Talk, lots to learn, and then Pat's Bills, of course, on Sunday. I will see you in about a week. All right, here with Antonio Gibson, another 4-minute drill. We just gave him the lowdown, run some clock, ask some questions, go back and forth. You ready?
I'm good.
All right. A little sleepy today. We're not starting the clock yet. Do you know, right?
I am tired today. Okay. I will admit defeat today.
We haven't even gone to practice, and the man's already defeated.
But I'm here, though. I'm here.
Okay, bonus content, the 4-minute drill. Ready, set, start. Okay. What do they not tell you about playing in New England that you've only come to learn over the last couple of months?
I don't know. I guess that's something they told me, but I haven't experienced, I guess, the weather, but it hasn't been that bad this year, so I guess that's something, but they told me that, but it hasn't been that bad here.
Yeah. We were just talking about games in Buffalo, looking at 18 degrees, some wind. I didn't mean to scare you, but I told you Jerod's rookie year, the field goal posts were going sideways. Did I make that worse, or are you already scared enough of the weather coming Sunday?
I was about to say Coach Springer kind of hit me with the 8 degrees yesterday, and I was like, you could have kept that to yourself.
Keeping it real. Still looking defeated. All right, give us the biggest badass in the locker room.
The biggest badass? If I had to say somebody, I'd just say Barmore. Just the way he walk around, I thought bro was just, playing around, but he really walk around like that, so I go with Barmore.
True story. You'll have multiple people in the locker room, first time they met Barmore, fought him. Ask Anthony Jennings back at Alabama. Moving on. Guys love to say, I want this guy at my back in the trenches. Chips are down, right? If you're going out, something goes down, I want him at my back. Who's the last person on that list you want at your back in the trenches in a moment where you need somebody?
I'm not answering that question. I'm not.
Does this make it easier? A lot of the guys have said a receiver or multiple receivers, whether they're small or they might be bailing. We're playing a little bit, but there's some truth.
I go with the specialist there if we're going smallest on the team.
Specialist?
Yeah.
All right. Drake May, if you could explain him in a moment, what was that moment?
A moment. I would say, I think against Tennessee, he broke for a run. And not even a touchdown pass, but I think he broke for a run, like a 10, 12-yard run. A linebacker was in front of him, lowered his shoulder, got up, pumped the crowd up, pumped the team up.
Nice. What were you doing in that moment?
I was on the sideline watching. Yeah.
Did you say anything?
No, I was hyped.
Okay. Very good. Hardest part of learning an NFL offense is what?
I would say the language, yeah. Just the language. Nothing much to that. It's all pretty much similar, but different verbal use and things like that. So probably the language.
Yeah, because you've been in a few offenses back in Washington, and obviously a new one this year. Can you spit out a long play call? No secrets given away here, but just something, nothing?
Nah, that's quarterback. Like, that's one thing I never understand how they get them long play calls out.
But they're in your playbook too, aren't they?
Yeah, but I listen to what I got to know and what I need to know, and that's it. I can't. You try to focus on all that, and then, that ain't. I listen to what I got, and then I cut my ears off.
Man, this is a former receiver talking too. All right, have you ever cried during a movie?
No. Not at all.
The closest you've ever gotten emotional? TV, movie, something you're watching?
Movie. If I could think about one, maybe The Notebook.
Okay.
Maybe The Notebook. Yeah. That probably almost got me.
Now, be honest, were you watching that with your girl, or was this on your own? How'd you come to watch The Notebook?
I think it was on my own. I like The Notebook. Yeah, I like The Notebook.
What do you like about it? We're going to stay here for the rest of the interview.
Just I guess the situation, how they fell in love, then they went their separate ways, ended up rekindling. It was a kind of like a love-hate relationship, but it ended up working out.
See, he gave us more on The Notebook than a single NFL play call. Like, this is Antonio Gibson. How many times have you watched The Notebook?
I've probably seen it about 6 times in my life.
When was the last time you watched it and why?
It's been a minute, probably a couple of years from now.
Okay, now he's getting distant. But were you sad when you watched it? Were you just looking to kill time?
I'm not sad no more. Probably the first time when I watched it, that was probably the saddest. But after that, yeah, I've been all right.
Was it a tough breakup?
Tough breakup? Not really. I feel like, they moved on in life and then they rekindled.
No, I mean for you, like why you were sad?
Why I was sad? Yeah. Breakup. No, it was just a good movie.
Just sad?
Good movie.
Okay. All right.
For sure.
Well, we just ran out of time. So that we literally killed the rest of the interview with the notebook. I'll end with this one, though. Same question we ask everybody. What's your least favorite question from the media?
My least favorite question of the media. For me, I haven't got it here, but I would say my second season, when I was going through that fumbling phase, and it was just like, oh, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, it's nothing. Like, I know what I need to do is just hold on to the ball. But, they punch at it perfect sometimes and they get it out. So it's just like, but they just thought it was some amazing answer. I was about to give them like, oh, I'm just going to take my arm across my body or something like that. That was probably the most hated question I had in the media.
Okay. His second year was also a few years ago. Might have synced up with the last time that he watched a notebook. That would have been a reason to be sad. Either way, love learning more about you. Thanks for hanging out, man. Antonio Gibson, everybody in the 4-minute drill.
Okay, it's been a long Patriots season. We all know that. But I am telling you, regardless of how the Patriots do in their last couple of games, we've saved the best for last thanks to Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and specifically Pickmas. Yes, you heard that right, Pickmas, where you can win up to not 100, not 200, not 500, but 1,000 times your cash. You know the deal. All you have to pick is more or less on at least 2 players in a lineup for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. I played this NBA. I played this MLB. I don't like doing it for football, but we hand out football picks in this podcast every single week, so it's really this easy. Listen to this podcast. Download the Prize Picks app. Create an account. Build a lineup between 2 and 6 players. They all come with stats. If you like them more, hit more. If you think it'll be less in their next game, hit less. And that's it. And you, again, can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Make your holidays bigger and better with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action as you watch your favorite sports. And we got a lot of them, folks, coming up on the holidays. If you don't want to chat with your family, just download Prize Picks. Watch some sports. And again, win up to 1,000 times your cash. Get it out with Venmo, MasterCard, whatever you want to do. Just join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away $30+ million in rewards. Again, Pickmas, how great is that? And when you sign up today, you'll get a $50 bonus instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus, 50. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup, and that's it. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Again, CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, as promised, weeks in the making and long overdue, which means I should probably give our next guest, Nick Roy, who donated the 2 tickets, bought by Kevin Wallace, our next guest, who ultimately donated $1,100 with his father to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, people doing good work for kids who need it, men and women who need it. And it all starts with you, Nick, who we just recapped off air. We're on the show last year as one of our mail fans. And not just because you also donated graciously, not just tickets, but your own money. You went to the 6-0 Patriots-Chargers game a year ago and flew up from your native Richmond to go see that. Woo. And just before me, you almost left at halftime. And despite the travels, might have been the best decision. So thank you for coming back. And the Patriots should be the next one to thank you just for still being a fan after that experience.
Well, you helped convince me to hold on to the season tickets, so they should thank you too. But yeah, no, big thank you to Kevin and his father for buying those tickets. My pleasure to donate. I mean, amazing work you guys are doing, promoting this charity and all the great work you guys do to keep us connected to the team. So very much appreciate that.
I got it. All right, let's get to some football. I have no idea where you want to take this, but the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, so I want to talk about football, but I also want to talk, I mentioned the amazing work you guys do to keep us connected to the team. So I've got a call to action for Patriots fans out there. It's the holidays are coming up. Our team is not very competitive. You can buy the jersey or the sweatshirt, or maybe you're a glutton for punishment like me and you want to buy the season tickets. But there's also another way you can spend your money to sort of stay connected to this team, and that is subscribing to all the great journalism that's done covering this team, whether it's the Boston Herald, like Andrew, the Boston Globe, Boston Sports Journal, whatever the case may be, right? This team, following this team has changed a lot over the last couple of years, as we all know, right? And when they were super competitive and there was a big appetite for news and information about the Patriots, there was a number of things out there that you could go. And I think as the team has gotten less competitive and the sort of media marketplace around the team has sort of shrunk a little bit, I think it's sort of changed the complexion of the information that's out there. And I'm a strange person. I subscribe to like 7 different newspapers and I read this stuff all the time. But I think if we're not willing to pay for good information about our team, we're not going to get it, right? The aggregators are out there aggregating stuff. But if people aren't paying for journalism, what are they going to be aggregating, right? All we're going to know about our team is what they want us to know. So it's a long way of saying I appreciate the work you guys do. And, following this team when they were as good as they were, you guys helped us stay connected to it. And it's so amazing. And so I just really appreciate the work you guys do. I love following these shows, listening to them, reading the great work you and Doug do for the Herald and all the other reporters do at all the other outlets. But pay for journalism, guys. It's worth doing. If you want to buy a gift for the Patriots fan in your life, buy them a subscription to something instead of a shirt and let them learn something about their team. And that's my spiel.
Okay. Nick, very kind words. And I would have stopped you earlier in the same way that I stopped Ted Johnson a few weeks ago when he was highly complimentary of my work and being on this podcast. I just can't take it. There is a quota. I will not accept any of the compliments. But again, you donated tickets. It resulted in $1,100 going to people with cancer. And that's a very good thing. The problem is, Nick, with your pitches, you sound like a plant. I sound like I've hired you off air to come on and say things about newspapers when some people listening or watching to this have no idea what that is. Because the idea of news being dropped in paper form at the end of your driveway, and that's how we consumed and learned things for decades, is just so foreign and nonsensical to anyone below the age of 22. What you're saying makes no sense. That said, in all seriousness, I am grateful you said that. It is dwindling, something Doug and I actually talked about in the office today, which is why I was late. Christian Barmore today, as I discussed already in the intro, put on the non-football illness list, and we won't see him again.
Oh, man.
But
I'm just hearing that now. Devastating stuff.
Yeah. He's recurring symptoms from the blood clots. Yeah, it's really, really difficult. But to your point, like, look, reporting that we do does take time, takes money, takes resources. So if people are inclined, even if they're probably getting this for free now on YouTube, I appreciate you saying that. Okay, all right. Seriously though, this time, my favorite plant, Nick Roy, hired for free to say that.
Yeah.
What about the team interests you? Like, I do think, putting my fan hat on, if you were, a la Robert Kraft. Drake May, good. Christian Gonzalez, great. Rest of the team, bad. Fairly bland, consistent storylines. What underneath that it kind of has your attention?
Yeah, you talked about it on your podcast earlier this week, but I've been closely following the struggles of the head coach. Specifically at the podium, which Jerod Mayo knows more about football he's forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. So I'll give him that. I am like a comms guy, so I do know a little bit about communications. And if I could give him a little bit of advice,
please do.
It would be to say less, talk less when you're up there. I think he had a good motivation for wanting to turn the page on maybe media relations. I think he made that a real tent pole, and when he came out the door, and I think it has not served him well. It's the same advice I would have given him when he worked in media, which is to let it breathe, say a little bit less, come to the podium with a couple of bullet points and make your point and move on. You said it earlier this week, but it would have been impossible for me to imagine him not having this job next year a few weeks ago. I don't feel that way anymore. And I think it's just a byproduct of some very easily fixable mistakes that he's made. And you shouldn't be putting your foot in your mouth every week. It's just not a good look for him. And it's Belichick used to say, never make the same mistake twice, right? Or he liked guys that didn't make the same mistake twice. Too many, it's different versions of the same mistake, basically, of just saying too much. Say less, Coach Mayo, if you want to hang on to your job. That said, like, I think that I was talking to my dad about this earlier. I think that he's doing something right, because it'd be very easy for players in that locker room to start saying things subtly or not so subtly that would demonstrate that maybe he's not up to the job. And I haven't seen that yet. You're more plugged in than I am, but like, it seems like the guys still like him. It seems like they're getting something out of it. And, you know, it's already been demonstrated by player comments and by Mayo's comments that the same, you know, regime for handling the media, it's different. So if players wanted to say stuff, they could. I think that says something. And like, he's a rookie. He's said it many times now that he's still learning. But anyway, that would be my advice to him. Say less.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because this question isn't fair to you, as you just said, as a comms guy, something I'm just learning. Yeah, we're all still learning that his most consistent and sometimes cardinal sin that we can identify publicly, fans, media, is his errors at the podium, which in the grand scheme of things, nobody cares about if you're winning. And the evidence is the 20-year run that we had with Bill Belichick, who was the worst podium coach for the purposes of disseminating information, being entertaining, though depending on your definition of entertaining, worst in the league at that. It didn't matter. Yep. It became comedy because the winning is the ultimate deodorant. It's the ultimate perfume and everything else. And that's why we're here, the football going on. And even if you look at the record and be like, 3-11 has me just as mad as, well, you said it, I didn't. You're not as mad if they're 5-9 instead. Certainly not 6-8. So I'm curious if you could assess yourself, to get back to the unfair question, separating your profession for a second. Do you think you care as much about that? Or is it just like Manny being Manny, Jerod being Jerod? If they have a couple more wins, you're like, well, that was stupid, but hey, they're rebuilding.
100%. Those missteps, if you want to call them that, would not faze me.
Very much.
It would not faze me. I think if we saw improvement in some other area besides quarterback play, which I think comes down to a player and not a scheme thing or a coaching thing, right? I think we're fortunate that we've got a quarterback who really looks like he can play, and I'm excited about that. But I think if they were playing well on the field, it would not be a big deal. I completely agree with that assessment, and I think the fact that they're not playing well on the field means that he really needs to button up that aspect of the job. It's even more important than it would be otherwise. It's just to say a little bit less, to get through those media engagements unscathed. That's part of his job over the next 4 weeks, and we'll see if he can do it. And if he can't, you know, I think it's a part of the job that when you're winning, it can be small, but when you're losing, it becomes magnified. And he's really he's gonna, just like the team, he's gonna show some improvement in that area over the next 3 weeks. And if he doesn't, I think the Crafts will be justified in making another decision. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's well put. And to your point about the players, your conversation with your dad about players not speaking out of turn, and you get, let's be kind, immature receivers, Kayshon Boutte twice in 2 months, being like, we should be more aggressive. We should have attacked more. Like, aside from that usual stuff, players are staying together. And Antonio Gibson, you don't have to take Nick's word for it. You don't have to take my word for it. You certainly don't have to take Jerod's word for it. They are largely sticking together. Antonio Gibson used the word good camaraderie today in speaking to reporters. Might have been Wednesday. Either way, that's there, even if it doesn't feel like it, or certainly doesn't look on it like it on Sundays. Okay, last real quick. You got a game pick, you got a prediction, anything into the season. It could be Sunday, it could be beyond. Just really quick before we get you out of here.
I think they get one more win. I really do. I don't know where, but I think they get one more win. I think they had a nice bounce back win after the soft comments, which, like, again, that was a real big media situation where even the national media was talking about the Patriots, which is remarkable given how rough it's been the last couple of years. But they were able to bounce back from that in a way, and I think they should. I think they should get one more win. I think they will get one more win. So that's my bold prediction. I'm hoping it's at the next Chargers game, which I'll also be at. Taking my son, and we'll see. If not, we may be having the same conversation in March about whether I renew.
I was going to say, well, okay, but at least we know you're renewing to the show, and that's really what matters.
That's right. That's
Roy.
right.
down in Richmond, came up to see an icy 6-0 Chargers game last year. God bless you, Nick. You think you were going to get something different this year in a way that no one with the Chargers team that'll be well rested, playing tonight as we speak Thursday night, is going to have an extra 4 days on the Patriots to come into Foxborough Saturday, 1 p.m., December 28th. I hope you enjoy the game with your son. It's an awesome experience. I hope you have a great, happy holidays. And thanks again for donating the tickets that kind of made all this possible.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so after our first guest was a plant, Kevin Wallace is certainly not a plant, and I have to put you on just alert. We will not accept any more compliments on this podcast. We will not accept any more positive commentary about my commentary. We will accept criticisms or Patriots talk only. Can you abide by the rules, unfortunately set by your preceding guest here? That works?
Works for me.
Okay. So what you got? What do you want to talk about today? And thank you again as we, honor the money you and your father donated to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, going to the game, $1,100. Like I have a podcast. Okay. Someone donated the ticket. Someone spent the money. I did neither of those things. And I want to, all joking aside, express my gratitude as I did to Nick, to you two, to make that possible. So first of all, thank you. And if there's anything you want to say about that before we do get to the football, floor is yours.
Sure. No, happy to help. Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's a fantastic organization. And today's actually my mom's birthday. She passed almost 10 years ago from leukemia. And it really helped us when she was going through treatment, helped us after her passing. So it's really a great cause, and happy to help. My dad and I donate every year, so we're happy to do so again this year. But in terms of Pat's talk, I mean, there's obviously a lot going on right now, especially with today's Barmore news. But I think practically kind of want to look forward and think about what's next for this team next year. Not necessarily draft picks or who we're going to sign in free agency, but realistically, Mayo and the Kraft sit down at the end of this year. What does that conversation look like? What are the action items, the action plan that Mayo has to put in front of the Krafts to convince them to keep his job, or at least make them feel better going into next season? And then maybe if we have some time, what do those conversations look like between Mayo and the coordinators, assuming they stay?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say this, number one, before you even get to that conversation, the best thing he could put in front of them, literally on the field, while they're up high in the owner's box, we know sometimes taking notes, sometimes shaking their head, is just a win. And however unlikely that is, especially this Sunday at Buffalo, as we know, the game afterward against the Chargers, maybe if the Bills lay down their swords in week 18, like you match Bill's record from a year ago, just going head coach to head coach. You say, hey, we finished on somewhat of a high note, one of those last two games. There you go. Can't fire me. That's number one. Number two would be everything he supposedly studied or thought about over the bye week. And I think by then you kind of know that, hey, he's in the barn. Like 75% of the season was over. And you say, these are our problems. This is how I want to change them. Because he had time to reflect and told us about that. And I think part of that will be the coaching staff too. Because I don't know about you, Kevin. Like I could see a scenario where Van Pelt and Covington both come back as the coordinators. Yeah. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I don't know what I would do. Still got 3 weeks left. But there's also a scenario where both of them are gone. So I think the Krafts will have a good idea of what they want to do. They'll discuss with Jerod and say, hey, look, this wasn't good enough. You know it. But tell us what you want to do next. Off-season changes, right? We talk about rookies going from the college to the NFL. First off-season, you experience that. This will be his first really full off-season as a head coach, coming off of a season, knowing what he wants to change. That year two leap applies to coaches too. So that, I think, will be all part of their conversations whenever they have. But where are you on the coordinators?
So I kind of think they should be back, particularly Van Pelt. I mean, he's done a great job with May. And I just that inconsistency from year to year, I think what made Brady so great was the fact that he had the same coordinator, same system year over year over year. Regardless of what we think about the system, I mean, May's played phenomenally within it. So get the players for him and Van Pelt to do their thing. And I think Van Pelt needs to do some work on his play calling, maybe play design, get someone else in the room that maybe isn't Ben McAdoo to kind of chime in on these sorts of things, to infuse some additional insights into the offense, because what they're doing now just doesn't make sense. And Covington, maybe the defense is obviously underperformed. He's got to come to Mayo with some sort of plan as to either some coaching turnover or some game plan improvements that he's seeing himself. But I think they both stay, because I think the Krafts and Mayo went into this year saying, hey, everyone's a rookie. the coaches, right, they're all rookies. They didn't know what they were doing. So if you're hiring them as rookies, you kind of have to expect some improvement into year two. And I think they'll get that chance. But after year two, no whole bar.
Kevin, let me ask you something. Do you ever call in to Boston Sports Talk Radio?
Never.
Okay. A, probably better for your health. B, they could use some of this rational just sense, which I'd like to tend to bring on the show here.
That's why I listen.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, no, okay. I
Sorry.
guess it wasn't a compliment. That was just an explanation. but the point being, that's a rational, well thought out take. As upset as you are, and you said the offense is unacceptable, to say like, hey, what did you expect? And honestly, I've had to remind myself in the height of just frustration, sitting here at the same desk, doing the same show, watching the film over and over again to July when I'm writing, hey, X amount of thoughts before training camp, whatever. Last one, it can't get worse. Like, because of everything that you just mentioned. Now, I will say tomorrow, as we speak here Thursday afternoon, I have a column going up about potential coordinator candidates for 2025, because I do expect one of them to go, and certainly position coaches underneath to go. And I've talked about the receivers and the O-line being prime candidates for change. So if you had to pick one, not saying you want to, but I'm forcing this upon you, one coordinator to go, who would it be? And then who are your, I don't know, like top names you wouldn't mind at least seeing an interview, if not someone getting the job?
So I think it'd have to be Covington. I know Jerod has a great relationship with him. He seemed to be a great D-line coach, just kind of all over defensive coach last few years, but he just hasn't been able to get that defense going, and they've had the pieces for it. So I think of the two, he's the one who could get the axe. As for a replacement, honestly, I kind of might lean and go someone on the staff, especially if they like Brian Belichick and don't want him jumping to go with his dad at UNC. Maybe they pick him. I know Mike Pellegrino's talked highly about, I don't know, in a coordinator conversation, but I love Mike whenever he speaks, and he speaks intelligently on things. So I don't know how much game planning he does and play calling, but I think I would look internally for those answers, but also bring in kind of a defensive person from outside the room as well, and outside the building as well. I don't know who that would be necessarily. I don't think in a coordinator role, but I'd honestly lean on the internal candidates.
Yeah, I think that's smart, because I think that's where the Crafts and Jerod would want to start. And you could go the cheap, don't want to spend route, and there's some validity to that. Owners don't like paying for multiple coaches that they just dismissed. Still on the hook for Belichick through the end of this year. Mayo would be next. Any coordinators, if they're fired, if and when, or whomever it is, then you're obviously paying the people to replace them. So Pellegrino is an interesting one, because it made me think of my second year in the beat, 2019, where he was, and I said this to him, honestly a bit of a jerk. And it was like under strict orders from Bill of the old Mark Wahlberg line in The Departed of just like, whether it was, the feds, or in this case, the media, keep him in the dark and feed him shit. And that's what he would do. And now he's growing into his own. And just like we all do professionally, personally, you get like still the Long Island kind of FU kind of guy, and the guy who's become a really seasoned cornerbacks coach. So anyway, the experience level between him and Brian Belichick starts at safeties, where typically when Bill would bring up coaches, they would be there and then move to the front, and through that experience have a more well-rounded view of the defense. Does it scream coordinator? But to your point about continuity, would check that box in a way that I do think is important. Let me run two other names by you, though, because one is Patrick Graham. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
So he's with the Raiders now. That's talk about firing coaches. John Gruden, Josh McDaniels, and Antonio Pierce, soon to all be on Mark Davis's payroll / Tom Brady's. And then whomever is going to replace Antonio Pierce, you have to think, if he's gone, so is Patrick Graham. And you'll be like, well, Las Vegas stinks. Why do we want the Raiders scraps of all franchises? One of two teams that's going to pick ahead of us, meaning us, fan view of the Patriots, in the draft. They were 9th in scoring defense last year. The guy went to Yale. This is a guy who's been around the block. This is a guy who's been in New England, left, has more of that experience. Doesn't mean he's always been successful. Would you feel better or the same about Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator?
I'd feel better with Patrick Graham as defensive coordinator. Obviously, he has the experience, has had, like you said, some success, and he was with the Patriots on their coaching staff for a time.
Yeah,
so
that's where he got to start.
He knows the building. He knows the culture. He knows kind of what the expectations are for the franchise. So I'd be very comfortable with that decision if he came on.
The other name is Christian Parker, and this is not as exciting because I think something that will come up as we get closer to the season, us here in the media, I was looking ahead and staying ahead. Could it be this? Could it be that? And you're like, oh, I wonder what it is. And then it ends up being like free agency, always the least exciting option. Christian Parker is a 32-year-old defensive backs coach / passing game coordinator with the Eagles. And before that was with the Broncos. This is a guy who's very well regarded in the league, interviewed for the coordinator job last year. The reason that might appeal is not because he's the new hotshot, though that alone sometimes gets people going, is he's obviously had a lot of experience in a different system, but is young enough where he might not be like the coordinator he worked for, Vic Fangio, kind of as we say of our grandparents when they say things that are like borderline of holidays, set in their ways. Like he's still got some flexibility to him. Would that do anything for you or anyone who fits that profile?
I do like that because I like the idea of bringing in a younger coach, someone who maybe doesn't necessarily have the same level of experience, but has clearly more experience as a coordinator of some part of the defense, and can kind of bring that experience and the new ideas. Because I feel like they were trying to use the same defense that they've had and inject some new things, which doesn't
Yeah.
seem to have panned out. So if they can bring in some more new ideas from more experienced system and a system that is clearly playing at a very high level for the Eagles, I'd be behind that for sure. Between him and Patrick Graham, I'd probably lean with the newer guy and Chris Parker, but I think both would be better candidates than what Covington has given them so far this year. And unless Covington can really convince Mayo and the Crafts that, hey, he's got an actual actionable plan to improve the defense next year, I'd be happy with a change.
Yeah. Anything else on the coaches that's top of mind, wish list, or opposite of wish list? Like, please, 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 please don't let Matt Patricia within 100 yards of the school. I mean, the facility, like anything like that.
I think bringing in kind of someone more senior, a former head coach. I know I think I've read somewhere that Mayo is friendly with Tony Dungy, and I think I heard rumor early on when he was hired about the former Tampa Bay Bucks head coach. Name is escaping me now. An Indianapolis Colts head coach. To bring him in as more of a senior advisor, I think I would like someone in that role, either kind of advising Mayo on head coaching things, or specifically on offense. That again, I don't know. I don't know how the McAdoo thing came about, but clearly he's not brought necessarily what we need on offense to get the improvements there. So someone more senior, I think, on both sides of the ball would be great to kind of advise the coordinators and do a more supervisory sort of role. Probably someone maybe retired with a decent amount of experience, who's maybe not in the game right now, but at least can serve as that kind of senior advisor sort of role.
Yeah, I like it. I think a sounding board, a consultant, someone who's not threatening in the way that, people, including myself, have brought up, like Brian Dable. And then you go, okay, well, that guy's in the building for the same reason Jerod Mayo may have, and I don't know this, hesitated about Bill O'Brien. Well, if I suffer or falter, this guy might be a threat to my job. Like the kind of coziness with ownership, a little bit more experience than I've been a head coach before. There's the replacement. I don't want to invite that wolf into my, football henhouse here. So it's an interesting thought. I mean, there are a lot of dynamics at play, and some of them we're not even privy to, but also just might get a lot more weight than we're like, hey, this makes sense on paper. It doesn't matter if people at the top don't want to hire them, including Jerod or Jonathan Kraft or Robert Kraft. All right, let's get you out on this. I asked our first guest, Nick, the same question. Give me a pick, a prediction, something either for Sunday, which if you don't want to talk about Sunday's game, I totally understand, or we could just look ahead to the final two games, or maybe in the day or two after, just kind of like end of season prediction, something you think is going to happen.
So I'm going to predict that they win 2 out of the last 3 games.
Wow. He said 1, and I thought it was a little, whoa. Okay.
No, I think they win 2. I think really, I don't want to say Jerod's coaching for his job, but I think this team respects him enough that they are going to play their absolute hardest these next few games. And I hope he's breathed that fire behind closed doors, because I think we saw some effort issues in the last games. And honestly, I think this Sunday's game is going to be closer than people think. I'd love for it to at least be within a touchdown, hopefully by the end. And it's not another runaway show, but I think they'll win 2 of the last 3 and give some positive momentum going into the offseason. And the defense, I think, is going to play better than they have, because I just think hopefully they've looked inside themselves and seen that they have not put out the best effort. And we'll see the best out of this team and give us all some positivity going into the offseason.
From your lips, Kevin Wallace, to God's ears. And there are many football gods up there. Some of them a little punitive, petty, or just don't care about the Patriots at all. But hopefully that does turn around, even just for the sake of the vibe around the program, the locker room. Selfishly, talking to happier people than we have been as of lately on the media side would be really nice. And look, it's going to it's like 18 degrees, low of 2, looking at Sunday. I can't think of many things I would rather not do than play football in that type of weather. One of them, though, is play losing and watching losing football in that type of weather. So God bless that. Fingers crossed for all included, that game stays close. Well, thank you again for buying the tickets, donating the money to LLS. A happy birthday to your mom. And I think I've told you this before, but the people listening don't know. We'll be doing much more work with LLS in the offseason in the future. I'll leave it at that. But if you listening or watching now want to be on the show, like Kevin or like Nick, we will be bringing back the mail fan segment. So all you have to do is just donate money to help people fighting leukemia, fighting lymphoma, do a good thing, come on the show and talk sports. That's it. So just like Kevin, you had a good time, right?
Absolutely. Best time.
My man. Okay. All right. That's kind of a compliment, but we'll let you off the Scott. I appreciate you, man. Thank you again. Genuinely, it's been great to have you.
Thank you. Go Pats.